in live ratings.
Oh, he got demoted. Poor Hikaru.
So here, as you mentioned, we've already kind of accelerated beyond. They dealt with, that initial line that we were talking about, where the bishops would run rampant through the back line of each opponent's pieces by bringing those knights out. Obviously, rook out onto the field, nice development. I'm thinking, though, immediately that this is a piece similar to maybe an early queen coming out that I'd want to target and harass.
Yeah, this rook this rook journey, I'm not sure where it's going next. Is it just going back? Because it can be hit. As you mentioned, James, there's a couple of ways to do that. A pawn could attack the rook. Probably I wouldn't recommend this one because just to put this on the board, once the white rook retreats, the pawn next to it, this e-pawn now is a backward pawn, struggles to move forward. But one very tempting option is to bring the bishop out, not just attacking the rook, but potentially pinning a pawn, tying the white queen in the corner a bit longer.
Yeah, I like that move a lot. Developing the piece as well, still guarded by the knight.
Okay. Interesting to see Hikaru think here, Tanya.
Yeah, and David, we see Javak here, he's going for that concept, right? Again, freestyle chess is sort of finding its own opening principles as we go along playing more and more games in it, where it's so much about breaking the symmetry and having that first move advantage. As black is playing copycat chess, white gets that first central break in, the first open line in, but it does also come at the cost of, well, the diagonal and making a major more vulnerable to attacks. I do like this approach from white. I think it's a very active one. The next question that Javakir will have to answer is what to do about the minors in the first rank. Do you think about bringing the knight out towards the center of the board, controlling more central squares? Or are you looking at first perhaps activating the bishop to that square, the d4, and pinning it against that black queen, making sure it stays in the corner? I really like it when a player is able to get that first central break in. It feels not only like a power move, but you control more of the board.
Although, what's interesting for me is that Java here played all of this without thinking for more than 1 minute.
Do you think
he has 129 on the clock. Meanwhile, Magnus has the opposite. He is playing with white, but he has like 120 on the clock. So he's really, really carefully trying to measure all the ingredients before mixing, before putting them to bake. And Java here is like f4, knight b3, e4, rook to whatever. Let's just play. He's still in rapid mode. So.
Do you think this will trigger Nakamura? Not only did Sindarov choose him yesterday at dinner, but he's just blitzing at the beginning. He's not showing any respect to the more experienced opponent there.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And for Javakir, it was a pick between Notterbeck, Gukesh, and Hikaru. I think we can delve a little bit into the dynamics of choosing Hikaru. We already touched upon that. Doesn't want to play his teammate, Notterbeck. Gukesh being the classical world champion, also a very tough choice. There's so much psychology playing against your own sort of age group. And it's somehow not a very comfortable zone. So going for a player who definitely has the experience, but age is on Javakir's side, well, form as well here. I also want to point out, right, Fabi said, and I think, David, you were talking about this before we got on the broadcast, that during his practice games, he actually got a position that appeared on the board in the round robin. What are the chances here that Javakir randomly, while training, had position 381?
I mean, we can work out the...
I think it's 1 in 960.
Yeah.
The
He's
chances.
feeling sleepy as well, by the way. It's like, I've seen this before, 381 at the back of my hand.
He did tell me in an interview a couple of days ago, the game started at 1 p.m. He's been waking up at 12. Literally 1 hour before the game.
I mean, it all depends, I guess, when he goes to sleep. That really is what matters. I mean, you can... But, yeah, I think, look, he's young, and as you get older, you feel much more weight and anxiety with every move that you make. Like, am I really making the right pawn push in the center? Java here is like, listen, I almost won the round robin. I'm undefeated in Bundesliga. I've won probably 80 to 90% of my recent games. Probably, the way I'm playing is normal. And, okay, I mean, still, Hikaru has 78 minutes to think, and Java here will think later. Actually, David, you're our grandmaster. You've been 2,700. I've heard top players say things like, even if I know the opening, which obviously here they likely don't, I will still take my time. Because sometimes if you sit down and play really fast, you never get into focus mode. And then when it comes time to think, you're like not in the right shape. Is this a thing?
At least for me, that's true. Often there's a kind of there's a breaking point where you can also know a bit too much. So you know what all the options are for yourself. You have 2 or 3 very logical moves. One might lead the position a certain way, more dynamic qualities there. One might be a bit quieter. You know your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, so you sense, you kind of sit there just mulling over the stylistic decision. That could be relevant here, but also you know that your opponent has 2 or 3 good moves. You're deciding whether to bluff, whether to kind of play those moves quickly. I mean, there's so much under the surface that we don't see. There's no just one kind of correct move, especially in the opening.
Exactly, and understanding that there's going to be no one answer for every player. I'm also curious how the time controls themselves and even the time remaining on your clock ultimately plays into your decision making. At the end of the day, you'd love to find the perfect move, but at a certain point, you have to make a move before the clock runs out, and budgeting your time is a skill that maybe is under talked about when it comes to chess. So is that something that you're thinking about from the get-go? How am I budgeting my time? Or is that something that doesn't come into consideration until you feel the time pressure itself start to creep up onto you?
You're asking the worst person in the world, James. I'm the time trouble addict.
Are you?
I can't budget in life or in chess, especially on the clock. But the top players do, right? Hikaru, Magnus, they never seem to be too flustered, even if their clock is ticking down. And we should mention the time control, Tanya. There's no kind of added time later in the game. It's just 30 seconds per move that you get extra. There's no time control. Normally at move 40, you get this extra hour or half hour on the clock, but here it's just to the death.
Yeah, the players start with 90 minutes. Every time they make a move, push the clock, an additional 30-second added. Our community is also asking, is this a one-game match? It's a best of 2. So the players will play 1 classical game today and reversed colors, new position tomorrow. If it remains at a tie, we will have the faster formats. We go into the 10 plus 10, and then if that's a tie, then blitz. We might even have an Armageddon to decide. And there we have it, James.
Yeah, so of course, yeah, we're right now in that knockout stage, classical 90-minute plus 30 seconds. We will have opportunities for tiebreakers if through 2 days any of these players ultimately are tied up in points. We go rapid, blitz, Armageddon in that order in order to end up with a victor in the end.
And you know, I want chat to get involved because we've been talking so much about Javakir's pick of Hikaru Nakamura. What do you guys make of it? What do you think of it? Because I think very few predicted here. We were all expecting a Magnus Hikaru matchup. And you know, I am not good with the Gen Z lingo, but to me, as the Twitchverse would say, it was a very Giga Chad move. Would that be the correct way to put it, Lavi?
Yes, please never say that again.
I will never say it. I apologize.
No, not because it didn't sound good. Just don't incentivize them.
Right, that's true. Don't give them that power.
Leave them in the basement.
I'm giving you all the power, chat. Come at us. What's the emoji for this power move by Cinderov?
I think it probably depends also on how he does. Like then the emoji will change. It might be a bit of a Papega decision, shall I say? If he ends up losing the game. But I know we're the community stream, but we're not like the DGen stream,
No, by no means.
Yeah, or maybe we are, I don't know.
But also predictions, right? Let's get those up. Let's get our poll up on chat as well. What do you make of this match? Who wins? Do you think this will end peacefully? It's just the first game in their best of 2. Let's get you involved, and we'll bring up our results.
Something about this tells me it doesn't end peacefully. I don't feel like Javakir is the kind of player who wants to come away today with a drawish ending, right? I think he should have a fair amount of confidence based on his group stage play while he did suffer a loss right at the end to Alireza Firouzja. I'm hoping that he comes out with a more attacking-oriented chess and really tries to apply the pressure onto Hikaru.
And just diving back into the chess, I wanted to mention another peculiar instance of deja vu, because this position I mean, this is the live position between Sindarov and Nakamura. This position also arose in Fallujah against Kaima, where Kaima has just pushed his pawn a few seconds ago to this square. The clocks were exactly the same, by the way, so both Hikaru playing with black and Vincent Kaima playing with black thinking. And now this move played, this was also the choice of Fabiano Caruana in his game against Gukesh, so that position arose in 3 different boards. And White's rook retreating, also the choice of Gukesh. I mean, okay, it's copycat chess. This is also the position of Gukesh against Fabiano right now.
Yeah, but how about that? After a long think, Hikaru decides to commit the bishop towards the center of the board, force that rook back, and then bring the queen into a position where she can get active as well along that same diagonal.
Speaking of diagonals, take a look at what's happening on that bottom left board. Magnus versus Nodderbeck, where it's fire on the board already. The bishops did land on that A pawn. The weak pawns, rooks have been picked up. Magnus keeps looking on the side. No, Magnus, no other game is following this drama as yours is. What is happening here, David?
Yeah, I think we will dive into that Carlsen Abdusattorov game in a moment, but it is copy-paste, just to mention. It's literally Sindarov and Gukesh against Nakamura and Caruana. Their 2 boards just totally identical. It's rare to see.
I gotta love that. We'll wait for a deviation there, but I do think it's wise for us to check back in with Carlsen and Abdusattorov, because this is a kind of position I think that is terrifying for a player of my level. When you still have that bishop just sitting there eyeing the rook, ready for the taking at any moment. Maybe help me work through the thought process of when and where and why you would take that as opposed to leaving it available. That said, before you answer that question, we're going to dive in and get a word from Magnus Carlsen himself in the confession booth.
I don't even have that.
Realizing it?
Which we can't hear.
If I'd managed, let's say, he'd taken the pawn immediately, I go g3, opening up for the queen. He protects the pawn with pawn to d5, then I think I can probably give a check with the bishop, and then after he blocks the check, I can move the rook from b1 to d1 castling. As far as I can see, the rules allow that. So at first, I'm thinking, what is he doing? Because now g3, the thing is, his bishop was covering squares along the diagonal. So it seemed nonsensical to take the rook, and also tactically, d5 was hanging in some lines, or even it was protecting e6. But I think that's what he was worried about. Now I think d5 looked very unappetizing without the light square control. So I think I'll be able to bring the queen out to e4, and I think it should be a little bit better.
Well, that a little top-tier insight from the players themselves, a peek inside the mind of Magnus Carlsen as he evaluates this position. Seems to be happy with the way things have played out for him so far, and as you mentioned, he's looking maybe to find a way for his queen to get involved, eyeing that pawn, of course, that rests on the e4 square.
Yeah, and James, you earlier mentioned when to take this rook. Magnus actually gave away the answer, so saving me from coming up with the solution there. He's basically saying that this pawn in the center that he's gambited right now, if it is defended by a fellow pawn, if black pushes his central pawn there, white can give a check to the black king, so developing with gain of time. So leaving the black king slightly vulnerable, I think, is the concrete answer. But maybe just for our viewers, an actual replay of the last few moves.
I think that'd be lovely. Yeah, let's remind ourselves how we got here, because the last time we did check in on the board, both bishops were still there, eyeing the rooks. And of course, we can go ahead and quickly blitz through these positions before we hear from yet another player who stepped into the confessional booth.
Yeah, so Magnus broke in the center. Abdusattorov took this rook. The white king simply recaptured, leaving the black rook hanging. A capture in the center, and rather than rook takes pawn, which we saw a similar move in the other boards, Magnus trying to get his queen out with gain of time. Very ambitious play by the world number one.
So that's how we got to where we are, but I would love to hear more from the players themselves, so as quickly as we can, we'll dive back into the confessional booth.
I'm not so unhappy with the opening.
No.
I think it's a dangerous position, because my knight is a bit stuck.
All right, well, Fabi is currently in the confessional booth. We'll let him get all of his thoughts out. Perhaps we jump to his board then to get kind of a bird's eye view of it, some table setting for the wisdom that he'll be sharing with us in just a bit.
There we see Fabiano isn't currently in the board. We know where he is. He's confessing his sins. Meanwhile, Gukesh is thinking, and as mentioned earlier, this is the exact same position as another game, Sindarov and Nakamura. It was Fabiano who first decided to put his bishop in the center as black. That's a beautiful bishop, and the black queen has just slid over one square. What do we make of this?
Well, what I make of this is actually that the time is different on either player, right? It's actually the white player here who has less time than the black playing player, where Hikaru is the one who spent more time thinking. But with that, I believe our confessional with Fabiano is ready to go. So let's dive in and see how he evaluates this position. Looks like maybe some audio issues we'll sort out. Up the volume in there on the confessional booth to make sure that we can actually get the words that the players are throwing out there. But taking a look at this, do you find it to be confidence-inducing that, you know, if you're a player seeing a number of other players matching your position up to this point?
It's mind games, right? Some confidence because you know you're probably playing good moves and you're getting some support. But there is this itch to go your own way. I don't think any top player wants to be seen as the one copying their professional colleagues. And Tanya, I haven't seen Gukesh discussing with anyone in the initial position. So especially for him, head in hands, I don't think he'll be looking to try to kind of mimic the other boards for too long.
No, I mean, he's got his tunnel vision. You know, he's just concentrated on his board right now, and it's really a complex one if you look at it. Yes, he was the one to break that symmetry, get that open E central line where the rook is placed. But also Fabi's style, the last few moves have been so incredibly active. The queen from the side, the corner of the board, is now about to come, well, to even slide up one square forward, start targeting that F-pawn. The knight might jump forward. And right now what's going on in Gukesh's mind is how does he place pieces? Because, Levy, even in freestyle chess, right, the general principles remain the same out of the opening. You need to decide the setup that's the most appropriate, where do you put each of your minors, which pawns you push, and you kind of have to figure that out from the very start.
For sure. Like, for me, I want to put my knight into the center and target black's bishop, right? Like, and then you have to think, is that a good move? Probably my opponent will retreat. And then what do I do? You know, do I move pawns? Do I move my knight, my bishop? Which way am I going to put my king? Am I going to castle my king on the left side of the board, the right side of the board? Maybe that knight jump isn't good. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should play with my pawns first. What does my opponent want? Am I hungry? Like, was the opening a good choice? I wonder what other people are doing.
Yeah.
You know, whatever goes through a chess player, why am I here?
That is not Gukesh's brain at all.
No?
He's sitting down and calculating.
My biggest concern is that queen. It is my queen over there on H1 sitting in the corner. And how do I find a way to get her eventually involved into the game? As Levy mentioned, maybe the knight kicking the bishop away is one possibility. But of course, could always slide back, you know, one on the diagonal and continue that pawn pin. So then my other thinking, David, is, okay, let's take our own light squared bishop, bring it up here to the F3 square, and maybe offer a trade, but then we're opting into doubled pawns, which never feels good, especially since there's no opportunity to connect pawns on the other side of them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think you gain enough compensation for the double pawns. Normally, if you are about to wreck your pawn structure, let's just put that on the board like this, then, as you say, James, you need something in return. You need active pieces, you need targets in your opponent's camp as well, but these two are just isolated and weak. So, yeah, this is a bit of a dilemma for Gukesh.
Well, so then, but is it, well, a bit of a dilemma, but then I always go back to, is it a problem we even need to solve now? Yes, it's a long-term concern, getting our queen, involved in the game, but is it something that we can say, I'll deal with that later and put focus elsewhere on the board, maybe try and create some kind of counter pressure of our own?
Yeah, ideally, if there was a way, but there's no obvious path, I would say here, Tanya, for white.
Not clear, which is why the world champion's taking so much time right now, right? And this is exactly the reason why the players really enjoy the classical format when it comes to freestyle chess. Standard chess, you'd be blitzing out the first 10 to 15 moves. It would be part of your home preparation, especially when you're playing against one of the best in the world, when you're playing against Fabiano Caruana, but not in this format. I also want to talk about this matchup a little bit because yes, it's a clash of generations, you know, it's experience versus youth, but their story does go way back. In the candidates as well, at the end of it did come down to Gukesh and Fabiano fighting for that spot for the World Championship match. For these youngsters, it's always such a massive, well, opportunity or something that they're so hungry for all the time to play against the very best in the world. Fabi has been a beast at the top for almost a decade right now. But where these youngsters are in their career, it's no more an opportunity. They play to win now. You know, it's sort of that thing when your idols become your rivals for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how with the white pieces, Gukesh, who's always an ambitious player, he always wants to play more chess, doesn't let his opponent get into his head, approach these questions that we're talking about. Fabi so far, I feel, has made all the principled choices. You know, he's getting his pieces out, that bishop nicely placed, also eyeing that e-pawn moving 2 steps forward at the right time, breaking the center. If the white knight was to step forward, hit that bishop after knight e3, the bishop would fall back, and Fabi has his own ideas to get some activity.
Also, I will just say that Gukesh has gotten the better of Fabiano the last few times they played. Like, he beat him in the Olympiad, which, you know, in chess is just about the, you know, the biggest thing that you can do outside of the candidates. Yeah, and in live, I think Gukesh is up to number 3 in the world. I think officially he's 5th, but it's Magnus, Hikaru, and Gukesh, right? I mean, what more can you say? Used to be Eric Icy, but he had this rough tournament a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, this is actually a low-key, pretty big rivalry in the chess world right now.
Maybe becoming less low-key by the day, right?
Yeah, let's see how this match goes. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But either way, maybe also having to add one extra slide to Gukesh's there, world champion as well.
You can say, you know, you would, just for the youngsters to understand, you can call Gukesh Sigma, if you will. Yes, indeed.
Dear
yes.
God, we're going to have to find a way to stop the Twitch chat trends here on the desk.
Just completely obliterated your train of thought.
You absolutely did, man. This is not, you know, usually...
We need Generation Alpha, you know, board behind us. If somebody makes a mistake today, someone's going to have to unironically say skibbity. That is...
No.
Stop.
Hey, you started. I mean, you opened the door.
I nominate one of these two.
Levy's already said it. I mean,
That's actually, yeah. Just, did we get that? Can we clip that? Let's just put that on.
I believe they actually got Gukesh and Anand into a commercial, and they got them to say the word skibbity. That was...
And trip.
Yes.
That was an incredible piece. That was an incredible piece. A lot of personality showing through there for both of those guys, and you love to see kind of the honor shared between the two of them, 5-time world champion and now the newest world champion in Gukesh.
a lot of riz there, that's for sure. But in the meantime, a question for you guys. Who would you take in a kind of tag team battle? Would you take Gukesh and Sindarov or Hikaru and Fabiano? Because the two games following the paths of each other, pretty much. The other game, White has just played, Sindarov has just played the knight to e3. Maybe Gukesh will copy. Maybe we'll see that game. Maybe we'll see the players removed from the room because that game, yeah, I don't know how long we'll see the copycat chess essentially go on.
That's a tough call. Making me choose between those two. I guess that's maybe where I would stick with the veterans for just a little bit longer, especially as you go deeper into a tournament. I think more so in the classical time controls and where less things are known. Maybe that experience, maybe that intuition that they have, the sense, the game sense that they have, might give them just the slightest bit of edge. But either way, I feel you could also toss a coin and be just as accurate in choosing between the two of them.
It's just interesting, two younger players versus two more experienced players, and clearly the younger players think alike, the more experienced players think alike. Some synergy there. But what catches your eye, Tanya, as we see the 5 games in front of us?
Well, to your point, the differentiator is that Javokir picked the experienced Hikaru, while it was Fabi who picked the Fire of Youth, the world champion, Gukesh in that one. And that's sort of a luxury to make your choice, but then you also have the pressure to prove your choice. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, the board that keeps catching my attention is the bottom left one. You know, simply because, well, Nodebek right now, in that current live position, does have extra material, but we notice how Black's rook is trapped next to the king and can always be picked up. And it's interesting how Magnus keeps delaying that decision to neutralize that material deficit. He just says, I'm going to keep improving my position, bring my queen out to the center of the board, because I can capture the rook as and when I want.
The question is when.
And if.
Yeah, you're basically a move away, right? Because Black's next move could be moving the bishop out, offering a trade. Or even moving the bishop out, not offering a trade, threatening to castle, threatening to jump the rook, you know, to the other side. Yeah, and so now we have this moment where Nodebek has to be very, very careful, because I think actually Magnus has completely mastered the essence of this position. If you actually go move by move through the computer, he's playing line by line a perfect game. So delaying the capture of the rook is completely the perfect thing here. And
Levy?
Yeah.
I just noticed, guys, we've got the heart rate monitors on today.
We do.
That is incredible. And Magnus is slightly higher than Nodebek.
Nodebek's young.
It's a little bit higher.
You know, he's...
Everybody's still in the comfort zone, though. Although, as we say that, we're just approaching triple digits for the first time.
Look at this. A chess player is moving to drink some water, and the heart rate is jumping by 10. Like, this is how out of shape we are. Like, I mean, my goodness. Yeah, 82 is quite impressive.
And you're talking about the most in shape.
Yeah,
player.
I was told playing a game of classical high-level chess burns thousands of calories.
Who told you this?
I think it was you in a video somewhere.
Not only is it misinformation, it's been directed at me.
I'll challenge somebody to go through the archives of Gotham Chess.
There was some article, you know, about Fabiano, and yeah, I think the truth is, like in tournaments, you need a lot of fuel during the game. You can have like nuts. You can have. Okay, some people drink energy drinks, but yeah, I mean, you can definitely burn a lot. It's like processing power. It's not exactly muscle twitching, but yeah, the brain is hard to fuel.
I mean, the position here, returning to the position looks good for Magnus, bringing this knight out. To me, David, it looks like, if I'm trying to understand his kind of strategy here, is to start bringing the knights over to the left side of the board, maybe support that bishop, even dive in onto the b6 square eventually. Obviously, right now, bishop protecting that, but looking for, putting continual pressure on that king. Interestingly enough, the a1 knight could effectively do the same thing as well if it finds a way to jump out here soon.
Yeah, and I'm expecting one of the moves Levy mentioned, maybe a bishop move here for Black. Just to put this on the board to show everyone who hasn't been with us here on the first 2 days how to castle in Fischer Random Chess, or Freestyle Chess in this case. For example, I mean, you should take the rook now probably, but if you were to just take your eye off the ball for one move, develop a piece, I do believe that Black can, there we go, bring the rook over.
Which is apparently very bad.
I don't know why this is bad suddenly, but at least you save the rook. The materialist in me.
This is, like knight d5? Something like some jump into the center? Oh my god, that's not the move, but it's also not bad.
Let's just show the idea.
It's just force checkmate in the corner.
There it is.
That's pretty sick. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I love how White's king can teleport to the right side of the board and castle to the right, because that's your rook. No, he moved it up and back?
Yeah, he took.
Oh, he moved it.
Yeah.
Okay.
He recaptured the black bishop.
Oh, sorry, the king moved, not his rook, right? Yeah. It didn't start there. It started on yes, on the bishop square.
So, of course,
this is not confusing at all. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What are we even doing here? So, what is the best move for Black?
It's a tough one, right?
Well, I do like that initial idea of the bishop moving forward and sort of forcing that trade of the bishop and the rook, forcing Magnus's hand to recapture material. You also place your bishop on a nice square.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you have to at some point, right? Because otherwise, I just don't like sitting with this kind of tension the whole time, right? And so
reminds me of family Thanksgiving.
Yes, exactly. Let's get the arguments out now, and then we can all enjoy a bit later. So let's trade the pieces now, and then we can settle back into a nice classical game
Also, to make it completely clear, Black's the only one in this position who can legally castle right now.
Yes.
White has moved the rook, the other rook's off the board, but I don't think that luxury will be with Black for too long, as Magnus, I think he's looking at recapturing the rook next to it.
Dare I say, if we are being super technical, Black cannot legally castle at this very moment. But
that is true.
yes, if there was space, he could. Magnus obviously this is like the happiest Magnus that you can see.
What?
He's in his element, rubbing his face.
Yeah, he's enjoying life.
Brainstorming. Yes, when you move the bishop, then you can castle. And I guess the thing that we were discussing is the threat of Black actually castling is not a threat, but getting the bishop off the board is. The only reason Nodibek is not doing that, I guess if we can just put the bishop trade on the board instead of this move. No, like let's back up and let's put the bishop on the b6 square, so captures the rook, king takes, and essentially what Nodibek is looking at in that position is, am I happy? And what is Magnus going to do here? Because this is ultimately what chess is about. The players are given 90 minutes each to anxiously ponder over the hypotheticals of what their opponents can do to them. And there are no patterns here, really, compared to the regular chess format. So, like, what on earth does White play here, right? Does White get a knight out, take the center, try to castle? Bishops are on the opposite color. There's so many imbalances. You have to consider one trade can leave you in a really bad position.
I'm tempted in this moment, too, even maybe in this position, to swing the queen over all the way to the left-hand side of the board, even a4, if that's not improper, making before we bring that knight forward again, threatening the bishop, and just trying to throw pressure along this left-hand side towards the king and look for a knockout punch.
Yeah.
Computer's telling me I'm crazy, but...
No, not crazy at all, James. Definitely an idea. The white knight could come. The white rook might later kind of come up and across and swing over. Yeah, neither side totally safe on that flank. And I'm just really curious about the best move, so I have been a bit naughty here, turned on the engine. Apparently Black should be pushing one of these two pawns, but I'm going to say that's not obvious for Nodibek right now, especially this pawn move. It feels like you're creating holes that White could jump into. For example, if Black were to push a pawn, the White knight could start thinking about trying to jump in, and to me this is relatively unappealing. It does not look so natural, nor does, I mean, that's a British understatement there. Very unappealing, I should say. Pawn to d5 as well just looks so kind of foolhardy, I'm going to say. Allowing some checks along the diagonal. Tanya, it's not going to happen, surely.
Yeah, it's a very non-human approach in this position, right? This is where the engine, it just shows, well, a different kind of understanding to how humans approach the position. Also notice how each of Nodibek's pieces are kind of set up for the next freestyle game. Nothing's left the back rank. Magnus has still managed to get all the activity, the queen and the rook on the open line, the knight moving closer towards the black king, the bishop nicely placed, ready to capture the rook. Well, optically, it does feel that if one had to choose, I'd pick White right now. What about you, Levy?
It's the hottest take of the day. That's, yeah, for sure. White's position is really nice. And when you ultimately get the rest of your pieces out, it feels like you can play. And he did move this bishop. Yeah, and you just said, it's the human approach. He's not going to move those pawns. The only reason he didn't do this any quicker is because we gave him the time, right? Like, if you have the time, you're going to take it. But in a blitz game or a rapid game, he would have come out much faster. Yeah, he would have played it in probably 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, therefore, though, I do expect maybe the next two moves, or next few moves, right, to be rather locked in for either of these players. Of course, as you just mentioned, Levy, they've got the time. They'll take the time occasionally to make sure they're not missing anything. And while Magnus perhaps takes a moment, we're going to take a moment to reflect on how yesterday broke down and how we ended up with each of these pairings as we reflect on all of those rapid games from just yesterday. A fierce fight for survival shaped day 2 of the WEISSENHAUS Freestyle Grand Slam. With 8 knockout spots available, half the field of 10 world-class grandmasters battled to stay in the competition. Tournament sensation Yabakir Sindarov continued his commanding run at the top, while even world champion Gukesh wasn't safe until his final game, his first ever clash as champion against the GOAT, Magnus Carlsen. The day kicked off with Alexander Botez revealing the starting position. Early on, the two last places seemed nearly set. Levon Aronian and Vladimir Fedoseev both lost their first game of the day, falling 1.5 points behind after 6 rounds and facing serious danger of elimination. But Fedoseev, European Chess 960 champion and freestyle qualifier, wasn't ready to pack his bags. He fought back in the next round, defeating Aronian in a direct elimination battle to stay in the race. Heading into the final round, Fedoseev had cut the gap to half a point. Gukesh, Vincent Kaimir, and Noterbek Abdusatorov knew that if Fedoseev beat Hikaru Nakamura, he could catch them. A 4-player tie-break for survival was still in play.
Gukesh has made a huge slip. Now the white queen can jump in with a check. It's not just one check. She's going to pick up a pawn, maybe even come and pick up this knight the long way round. She's going to do a dance around the board.
Hikaru's favor for Gukesh, remarked commentator David Howell. Gukesh lost against Carlsen, but thanks to Nakamura's win over Fedoseev, the Indian chess sensation is still in it. Fedoseev is not. His comeback didn't have a happy ending. He and Levon Aronian are out. But the two eliminated players won't have to leave the stunning WEISSENHAUS resort. Good news for the audience. The nice week includes guest appearances from Aronian and Fedoseev as co-commentators on the live shows. Stay tuned for the knockouts starting Sunday in WEISSENHAUS. Welcome back, everyone, to the Freestyle Chess at Grand Slam here in WEISSENHAUS, where we're hopping over to Javakir Sindarov versus Hikaru Nakamura. Quite a different board state, just showing a different way that the players could have taken, or path they could have taken. And it feels like this one is a much more steady state, just in terms of maybe the pacing of the game, right? Because of the lack of sacrificing those early pieces and breaking open the left-hand side of the board. A much more stable feeling, at least to this one, for both sides of the board, from my opinion.
Yeah, I think stable is a good word, especially for Sindarov as he, okay, I was going to say power stretches, but it's...
power yawn.
Evolved into a yawn, yeah. And just to recap the last couple of moves here, we did see this position just 2 moves ago appear on 2 different boards. Also, we mentioned the Caruana board against Gukesh. The white knight did attack this bishop. Hikaru retreated it, very surprisingly going that direction. We were discussing kind of dropping back here, keeping the tension with the white queen. Instead, the retreat has allowed the white bishop to jump out. Now this problem of the white queen is solved. You're going to push a pawn forward as white in the next couple of moves, and nice diagonal.
And now, admittedly, that feels a bit odd to me, because not only would we have been able to keep the pin, we also seem to have reblocked our queen from making an easy step out, maybe onto that very square that the bishop is resting on now, and threatening the pawn down the line on that F square.
It feels weird to me, too. I have no idea why he moved his bishop back there. I'm not saying it's not a good move. I guess he didn't want the bishop on the diagonal to be targeted by maybe white's other knight. Like, he felt as though if he had kept his bishop on the left side of the board in front of all of his pawns, it was an easier target. It's like when you're trying to escape a wrestler in a cage fight, but you run out of space, and then that's when you get taken. Maybe he's like, all right, I'm getting out of there completely, and then it's not so clear what white's next moves are.
And there could be another additional idea to what Levy just said, that with the move that he's chosen, falling back on that diagonal, he instead wants to use the square for the pawn in front of the king to move 1 step forward, and then vacate that square for his other bishop to land on, to kind of try and find some harmony in his pieces, and also create, well, this Berlin Wall, I want to call it, against the white bishop, because we're in Germany.
We're almost in Denmark, which is, I don't know, that was fascinating to me. I didn't realize how close Denmark was to us. Did you know that?
We're a short drive. I didn't know that coming, but somebody told me on the way here.
Yeah.
Like,
we don't know.
They were like, you should stop over in Denmark, because I've never been there before myself.
And you were like, where is that? I feel quite out of place here.
I might have better than average geography for an American, but that's still probably subpar compared to the rest of the world.
They should quiz us one day, like flags, or we should do one of those commentators, like flag quizzes, or capitals quizzes.
Like, if you're game, I'm game, because we can both look stupid together.
Can you name the European capitals that start with the letter B?
Berlin, Budapest, Bucharest.
Oof. Killing it.
Is Brussels the capital of Belgium?
I think so, yeah.
You think so? I don't even know the answer to your own question?
I know, I wasn't...
What kind of a test giver is that?
Bratislava?
Nice.
I think there's one more.
Impressive. I'm going to start thinking about this.
I mean, a move is not going to be made.
as a possible option to unlocking the bishop. I think it feels a little strange to me, though, just in terms of the pawn's positioning in front of the king, and then trying to figure out where the king is going to end up in the end game in terms of a point of safety.
It's difficult to say. Again, white could actually just castle next move. The white rook from b1 hopping over to d1 would complete that little maneuver. But yeah, I think for Hikaru, it's very unlikely that he's going to go the long way, Tanya. Just too many pieces in the way here.
I just keep looking at the camera. Javakir really did not get much sleep last night.
What, he's yawning?
He's been yawning. At least 10 times since the game has started.
He will get a stern talking to after the game. Joe, here, if you have to yawn, don't yawn. Sponsors are watching. We look excited.
Is that annoying as a player? Because, Lavi, for me, whenever I'm playing, if my opponent is showing, well, you know, he hasn't slept, but still confidently making the moves, walking around, yawning, stretching, I do feel a bit uncomfortable there.
Yeah, I think maybe slightly. Look, I've experienced everything. I've experienced an 11-year-old child picking his nose to the point that it bled, like that was, and then getting it all over his hands. I've experienced, maybe these are just American children. I like a kid, like, you know, went to the snacks area of the tournament, came back, and then was like sucking on each finger one by one.
Stop. Why did I ask this question?
Oh no, we can keep going. What's the worst that an opponent has done, you know, in one of your tournaments?
Why would you put that image into our heads right now? Early morning, beautiful morning at WEISSENHAUS, incredible chess being played, C6 on the board.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, Java here, if he starts getting snacks, and eating at the board is very bad, right? Like if you eat like an apple, just staring at Hikaru, just a power move eating an apple, you know?
So is fake eating an apple on a broadcast also.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. We have some fruit here. They gave us some fruit, you know?
But we did finally have that c-pawn play.
That was your plan, bishop there. And...
Yeah, so expecting maybe the bishop to come out. Also could bring that knight forward to target that same pawn as well, kind of build up the pressure onto the f-pawn.
Delayed Karakan. Just want to mention C6 better late than never, Levy.
Yeah. Although I'm reformed now.
Oh.
I moved the pawn 2 squares.
You convince
like
a bunch of people to play the Karakan and then you go elsewhere?
I'm trying to explore new paths to let them know if they're safe or not.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
He's a trailblazer.
I'm PR trained. All right, you can't get one past me.
I can't stop thinking about it now. Did you win that game?
With the bloody nose?
Yeah.
No. I drew, and that kid now is like higher rated than me. He will go unnamed. I think I've named him maybe in one place, but yeah, now I see him and he's grown. He's like 6 feet tall. It's really hilarious. I'm like, one time I had to call the arbiter because your nose was bleeding all over your hands. That was kind of crazy.
You will tell us his name later off broadcast.
Yeah.
I'll say it on broadcast.
The internet sleuths are already on it. I guarantee you that.
No, he's a strong young man, and you know, we all have these crazy experiences in life. So.
I've played opponents where I'll go to the bathroom, I see them coming out, they'll run straight out without washing their hands, and I'm like, oh, what to do? Do I shake that hand?
Well,
later?
the best is when I've walked into a bathroom in a tournament, and a man was at a urinal with his pants fully down, like that, just fully.
You just said this is not a DGen stream. You're just going on making it one.
This is community stream. We're just sharing our stories. We have the therapist set up here, you know. We have Dash and David as the therapist, and we'll have the Bota sisters here later. And, you know, the moves are coming in slowly in the States, so we have to make the audience laugh. I hope they're entertained. I don't know, maybe we can pull up the chat and see. Hopefully they're having a good time.
Rather
I'm scared
laughing
to pull
or
up
crying.
the fact right now.
A good break in all of this discussion is to let the viewers at home know that we are currently running a prediction in chat, so make sure your voice is heard. Let us know who you think is going to come out on top in this one that we have before us. Is it going to be Javakir Sindarov or Hikaru Nakamura? Of course, drawing is always an option. Before we move ahead to tomorrow as well. That's maybe a good opportunity as well to refresh everybody on the fact that these are best of twos, so it's not one and done today. Even if your favorite player does fall down in this first game, they will have the opportunity to strike back tomorrow. Another thing we didn't talk about as well coming into today is that the higher seeded player in each situation got their choice of whether or not they wanted to start as white or black. And actually across the board, we kind of had people making different decisions. Is that just coming down to pure personal preference? And at the end of the day, you don't know which positions are going to be drawn and where advantages might lie. So people may be looking to say, hey, I'll take the black side first because it's typically known to be weaker, but I want to end stronger, or I'd like to go out and maybe, you know, take an early win you know, with the white pieces, and then I don't have to do much. The pressure's a little bit more off when it comes to playing black the next day.
I think in general in this format, well, frankly, in most knockouts of classical chess, you want to start with black, and then in the next round, you know, playing with white is slightly better. Here, maybe playing with white is actually just slightly better off the bat because maybe there's a big enough advantage you can get randomly.
Well, and while I will want to maybe continue this discussion, as you can see, having some technical difficulties, a quick screen freeze. So we're going to toss you guys over to a quick video, the road to freestyle, how we got here, and then we'll return as we get things sorted.
The revolution of professional chess starts now. 10 world-class players, 5 unique destinations, 1 gripping and innovative format, changing chess forever. Welcome to the 2025 Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour. Bringing a unique chess experience to iconic places around the world, only the world's best players will take on the Freestyle Challenge. During the 2025 season, players are awarded points based on their placement in each Grand Slam tournament. Over the course of the season, each player's points from all the tournaments are added together. And after the last Grand Slam, the player with the most points will be crowned Freestyle Chess Champion.
It really is combat from move 1. This is so much better than classical tournaments.
All events in the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour will be played in the format of Chess 960. Each Grand Slam starts with a round-robin phase. All participants face off against one another in rapid chess. The 2 last-place players in the round-robin stage are eliminated, but will play for 9th place in a playoff match. The remaining 8 advance to the quarterfinals. From here on, the games will be played with classical time controls. Each matchup will be a best-of-2 game over 2 days, and in the case of a draw, 2 rapid games will be played. If there's still a draw, 2 blitz games will follow. And if the winner is still undecided, a final Armageddon match will be played. From the 7th to the 14th of February, the first Grand Slam of 2025 will take place in the luxurious WEISSENHAUS Resort on the Baltic coast in Germany. As it is the first Grand Slam of the year, all grandmasters are eager to make their mark, with the top spot there for the taking. After 8 intense days of play, only one competitor will become the 2025 WEISSENHAUS Grand Slam champion, taking home 25 points and $200,000 in prize money. Let the revolution begin.
Yeah, versus the VO that I've done the last 2 days is off of like. Welcome back, everybody, to the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam here in WEISSENHAUS, Germany. Hopefully getting all those technical issues sorted for you so that we have a seamless viewing experience across all 5 boards of the day for some high-tier chess action. Kind of want to return to the conversation that we were having before around the choices of pieces and player confidence as well, Levy, because I interrupted you a bit in your spiel in talking about how perhaps, you know, coming out with a nice strong start is going to feel good, and then you just maybe have to look for a draw on the second day, something that maybe most players would feel more comfortable navigating towards and playing a defensive solid style on day 2.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's all it came down to. They just wanted to start strong And it does feel like generally white is getting some advantages, like we see the position that Magnus has, for example, but it all does feel a bit random. Maybe it's just more comfortable to start with white so you're not, scrambling on the defensive end. But, I mean, what do I know? This is just my theory.
I mean, what do any of us know in freestyle chess? I think that's, again, a sentiment that's echoed by the players themselves as we have heard them talk time and time again about their uncertainty around the first moves and their willingness to eat up the majority of their time in evaluating these early positions.
To that point about picking piece color, it was really interesting because all the players who had to actually choose the color they start with, everyone chose white except Fabiano Caruana, who starts with the black pieces.
Exactly.
What do you think went on in Fabi's mind? Because to me as well, white felt like sort of the intuitive pick where you perhaps have the first move advantage, you try to push, and then, yes, in the second game you'll have black, David, but taking away the opening preparation part of it, you see how the first day went and take your approach then.
Yeah, I think Fabi, he still has this classical mindset where, getting white in the second day, you have the advantage, then you choose how hard to go. The others just want to start on a high. Fabian is pretty confident in general, I think, these days, so having the kind of first hit with the white pieces isn't necessarily vital.
How many World Cups have Alireza and Javahir, first of all, played, and second of all, gone deep in? Right, because World Cup is one of the only formats in chess which is a best of two. And so starting with black is actually not bad, because you get a draw and life is good, and if you lose, at least you can play white in the second day. So maybe it's just an experience thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Fabi's just experienced.
Or even in my head, I wonder too if taking the black position and playing against kind of the mindset of all the players who are choosing white or going to end up playing white, given that they have the white pieces, that's where they feel they need to strike. And if you feel like you can play a solid game of chess with maybe one solid counterpunch when you identify that first mistake of your opponent, maybe it is kind of advantageous to say, I'm going to let them all play an aggressive style chess that is more mistake prone, and I'm only looking to capitalize. And then when I have the white side of the matchup, all I have to do is make sure that I'm kind of pumping the brakes every once in a while and checking myself to not, kind of show my hand too much or make that first mistake.
Yeah, fully agree. And I mean, with Fabiano specifically, he knows Gukesh, he's going to press no matter what. Gukesh just kind of doesn't go for draws. He wants to keep the game going as long as possible. So why not take the heat in the first game, and then second game, Fabi will try and dictate a bit more there.
All right, well, as you can see, still experiencing some technical issues, so we are going to say goodbye to stream for just a couple of minutes, throw you to a minor break while we get things sorted. We'll get you back in here as quickly as possible. See you soon. And has been touted at times as a player that really enjoys this format and has invested a fair amount of time in it. Maybe we could speak to a little bit of his journey as a chess pro in general, but what elements of his play lend towards a chess 960, a freestyle chess style?
Well, he's massively talented and creative on the board, and he has a hunger to win regardless of who he's playing against. The form and, exactly the creativity that he showed in the plains was just fantastic. He took down some of the biggest guns in the chess world. He's a new entrant to the 2700 club. Massive talent from Uzbekistan. He was part of the gold medal winning team. It's been awesome to see his rise, and I feel somewhere freestyle chess, it shows pure sort of your chess skill and talent from the very start. You're not relying on seconds, on opening preparation as much, on memorization. You've got this fresh position every time, and it's just about strategy and skill from move one. And I think having that motivation, ambition, hunger for a player like Javahir, this opportunity that he gets to play against the world number one, the world number two, the world champion, and all these greats, it's sort of he wants to prove himself, and that's what he's been doing in the tournament so far.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to Fedoseev and Aronian, I would say both of those two players who came out at the bottom, unfortunately, in the round robin stage, they've got quite similar styles. They both have this, they put pressure on themselves to be creative every single game, every single day. But in the rapid format, yesterday and the day before, it was just 10 minutes each on the clock. I don't know if you have time to be super creative as early as move one. Often the best players, the players at the top, they were just in survival mode early on, and I think it's just that gear shift that they were lacking, and that's what means they're in this playoff today for the 9th and 10th spots.
If I jump to the other side of that matchup and speak just briefly about Levon Aronian, while I will make my best efforts and have been to get to know each of the players here, I've had the distinct pleasure of getting to know Levon over the last couple of days, and what a joy he is, just as a person, sitting across the table talking anything from musical theater to old classical movies to politics. He's just a wealth of information and levity, I think, in the way that he speaks.
I was going to, listen, I'm a bit biased, but I will say that anybody who has a prefix in their name, L-E-V, is well-adjusted, very normal, like quite charming, you know, and full of great stories.
Oh, so humble.
Yes, and full of great stories.
Yes,
and brings an element of levity indeed. No, Levon is probably top 3 on the you know, of the top players who are most beloved. There's like Vichy. There's always these interview questions like, who would you have dinner with? And it's always, you know, Anand, Levon. That's it. Yeah, that's it. No, these guys are great.
Anand again.
Yeah, and then Anand, if Levon is not available, like, yeah, these guys are really just a joy. He has like a love for chess, but he has a love for, like, you see players, they lose, they get upset, they don't do interviews, they, you know, you don't see them at dinner. Levon's always there.
Oh,
he's always there.
100%, and really such humility, I think, in his approach to his own chess. You know, understanding that every day isn't going to be his best day, and these last 2 weren't. And so, while he would have enjoyed performing better, still had quite a positive outlook, looking towards this 9th place matchup today and tomorrow up against Fedoseev. Of course, up on your screens right now, we're checking back in with Javakir Sindarov and Hikaru Nakamura. David, perhaps you can help us understand just what we missed in that.
Let's do something new. My music, your art.
David, perhaps you can help us understand just what we missed in that time where we are away. Doesn't look like too much, which is maybe the benefit of classical time controls, is not too many moves have been blitzed out.
Yeah, it feels like we've been off on a long adventure there, while in the meantime, in the playing hall, 2 moves, a grand total of 2 moves each have been played. Tanya, the main development in this game is that both sides have indeed castled. Normally we would say to the queen side, we see the kings on the same square they started this game, but the rook's jumping over. And Javakir here lower on the clock for the first time in the game.
And I think we're going to see this quite a bit, and not low by a lot, because Hikaru is also touching the 1-hour mark here. Just the top players, the very best players in the world, how much time they spend for the first few moves. We saw it in the round robin as well, that in freestyle chess, you could be completely lost in the first 10 moves, even if you're Magnus Carlsen. So they have to be extremely careful. David, I think the position that we have right now in front, it says, our evaluation bar says, that Javakir should be happy with the outcome. It feels that the pieces are more centralized, more out. But I think it's just about Hikaru getting that central break in Levy. Once he's able to push that E-pawn 2 steps forward and open his own lines, we're in for a real fight here.
I think at this point we can sort of safely say, after an hour of coverage, that the position was angled a bit for white to get an edge. It seems it's happened on almost every board. Although, and we will pop over to this game in a moment, we are in Germany after all. At some point we should cover the local German hero Vincent Keimer. Like, Vincent is actually slightly better with black, is what I'm seeing, but every other board, white is happy, which is generally how the numbers go here. Hikaru has just castled his king to the left side, so we're going to get a symmetrical battle there, but Javakir just simply has more space. But here... This is like a Dali painting. I mean, Firouzja is like just doing whatever he wants. He decided to bring his queen out, which apparently was the wrong approach, David.
Yeah, it looks like Firouzja, just this one thing that he's done with his queen is the main difference between the other boards we've been covering. Fascinating to see that Vincent Keimer has actually done pretty much exactly the same as Hikaru, while Firouzja, going his own way. And I'm not liking the fact that the white queen is lined up on a diagonal, stared down by the black dark square bishop. But it is surprising to me that black has such an advantage. We see the eval bar there on the left of the board. decent advantage, despite the fact it feels like Firouzja hasn't done too many committal things.
Yeah, so how did we get here? Let's walk it back, because it really is about the first time we're checking in with this Alireza Firouzja and Vincent Keimer game. And I want to understand, while 4 other boards are going the way of white, how it is that Keimer exactly found himself into an advantageous position. Of course, we could still wonder if he's aware that he's as well positioned as he is in this game.
Yeah, let's actually go back to the start, because believe it or not, this looks like a middle game, but it's only move 7.
Wow.
And let's trace it all the way back to the beginning. Pawn to f4 was played on all of the boards. We mentioned this earlier. The black knight jumped out just as it did on 4 of the other 5 boards. And okay, we saw a strike in the center from Vincent Keimer, hitting this pawn. Pawns were exchanged duly here. And this moves the Caro-Kann again. We mentioned the black bishop. This seems to be the key square, the key way to get the bishop out the way in order for the black king to castle. And yeah, to me, the most surprising move of the game. After the black bishop landed on this diagonal, Firouzja decided to happily walk into the eye line of that bishop. Very odd strategy there, I'm going to say. But okay, black castling the king, and this is how we got here.
An odd strategy. Can you excuse it, though? Like, what is the logic behind it? Just that we need to defend that pawn. So, no, it's already defended by the rook. So why is it so peculiar?
Yeah, James, I think to your point, what you were about to make, that one idea or one explanation of that move is to fight against black's break-free idea of going e5. You know, that queen from h2, it is x-raying that central square. So you're getting more forces to stop black from getting space in the center.
Yeah, pawn breaks are the key here for black. I mean, the black rooks are perfectly poised in the center. If line's open, it's clear that Vincent's actually ahead in piece development. It might not look that way. Black's piece is a bit cramped, but the rook's already perfectly centralized, connected. That's always a key in any middle game. The black bishop's nicely poised, and if the black pieces can force a central break and get the knight and queen out, he's pretty much ready, whereas Firouzja still needs a lot of time to be ready himself.
It just seems like every player with white understood the role that time and tempo plays in their setup, meaning they have to get all their pieces on the right squares, and then they probably have to commit their king. But Firouzja did not somehow. Like, he used some liberties to push his side pawn all the way up the board, which makes sense. He's taking space. He's restricting his opponent. He brought his queen out a little bit. But he still needs all the correct elements of the position, meaning he has to get his bishop and knight out, and he has to castle his king, and get his rook out of the center. And he doesn't have enough time to do all of those things.
You know, Lavi, I hear you, but I also feel that from a human perspective, in this position, the bar can be slightly misleading. You know, Firouzja, like you said, the minors, that bishop can land on the center of the board. That harry the h-pawn that has advanced so far ahead can then double down with that bishop on that central square, push itself, start targeting a weakness there. While it looks like there is a bit of discoordination currently in Firouzja's position, I think this is just Alireza's style of play, where he's just extremely creative with his plans and sort of posing these practical questions to his opponent. To me, the bar can be a little misleading in this one.
I think the bar can always be misleading, right? But it just feels a little bit like an all-in play.
I don't think it's so misleading on the Magnus board, but continue, by the way.
You said it can always be, not that it always is, that it can, right? But to me, this feels all-in. This just feels like a bit committal from Alireza. The fact that we've got these two pawns as far pushed as we do, and
I'll let David take over the expert analysis. I will also just say that Firouzja has the lowest amount of time on his clock than any of the other players. So could be a bit of overthinking, could be a bit of just enjoying himself because he gets an hour and a half to ultimately, you know, think through everything. And yeah, for sure, if there's one player in this tournament that will make a fight out of any position, it's
this guy.
It's Firouzja. But sometimes you play with fire, you get burned. But okay, who am I telling that to? His name is literally fire, so
Firouzja.
Yeah, Firouzja, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I know it from personal experience. One of the biggest games of my career, Grand Swiss, on the brink of the candidates, he defeated me, broke my heart. But yeah, I mean, it's always the kind of early stages isn't his strength anyway. Kind of the openings, we saw it in the round robin here. He eventually rose to the top. But I would say in terms of normal chess, kind of traditional chess, compared to the rest of the guys, I don't think he's quite there in the opening phase anyway. So he's kind of taken away his biggest weakness. Yes, he's freestyling here, literally, but it's later in the middle game that his strengths really shine through. The trickiness, the tactical vision, the momentum play, and in the end game as well, his skill's underrated if it's a bit more dynamic. So if he can get that far, I think that's the big question here. He hasn't done anything too wrong, so I'm on Tanya's side here. Yes, he might be slightly worse objectively, but who cares about objectivity? And body language aside, I think he should be okay for now.
Earlier, Levy, you talked about getting all your pieces on the right squares. In a position like this, obviously, my first thought in typical development of chess pieces is just kind of moving everything towards the center of the board, making sure that my bishops have decent, line of sight on pieces. Do you have a feeling, an inclination where each of these bishops and this knight that are still remaining on their starting squares deserve to be in their best position of development?
Well, you're definitely going to have to move the light-squared bishop. I was going to say f3. It's the only square that looks like it makes any sense. But also, actually, one square further isn't that dumb, because there's no way to remove it there, and you kind of control the diagonal. So that also looks like it is feasible. But mostly, I'm not even concerned about where my pieces are going to stand now. I'm more concerned about, like, how quickly is black just going to slap me in the center of the board with the two center pawns? Because they will come forward. One of them you are luckily controlling, and the other one you're not controlling at all. It seems like black's next 3 to 4 moves are a little more easy to pick than white's, which is sort of why I'm happy to let Firouzja decide rather than me. Like, you cannot move your knight, your remaining knight. You can't move it to the center because you leave your rook basically to die, right? But then if you move it out in front of the queen to the right side, I mean, what's the next move? So you kind of see the finesse by other players. They sort of like move the bishop, the dark square bishop up 1 square, and then they kind of use the knights. They didn't touch their queen. And it seems like now it's not really easy for Firouzja to make a move. But also, David, you actually have the moves in front of you. So maybe instead of the mystery, we can just say, like, what are white's next moves to not just be totally worse?
Yeah, again, we'll make an exception here. We'll check the engine, check what the computer recommends for Firouzja to do. The disadvantage is actually surprisingly serious, according to engines, saying it's already a 0.7 advantage for black. The best move here, or the best few moves here, to my eyes, are very illogical and very inconsistent. That is the main issue for Firouzja. Firstly, pushing a pawn forward, actually blocking this diagonal, but then you would kind of wonder why the queen
in no universe would I think to play that move.
Yeah, it doesn't improve any pieces, right? Piece development is so urgent here. The other top moves are retreating the white rook. Levy did mention correctly that that rook is very vulnerable. So actually bringing it all the way back home, I'm going to say that's not Firouzja's style, to retreat and kind of admit that he's lost some time there. The third best move, apparently, is to bring the white queen forward. Moving it for a second time in the space of 3 moves, never going to happen. So maybe...
But I guess attacking the pawn, maybe that will somehow, and then what does black do there?
Apparently leaves it. Black can leave this pawn.
Are you going to play queen g8?
Oh, this is cool.
It is cool. Queen g8.
Queen g8, rook takes pawn, and this loses, I believe, to the move, or loses some material, to the move g5. This is computer chess, everyone. But it shows the pitfalls of not developing your pieces. Because now the connection is severed, and en passant, which we should point out, walks into a knight fork. This would be...
And then rook takes rook?
Oh, wow. Rook takes rook. Just a recapture.
And Firouzja's out of time. Now he still needs to move his bishop and castle, but he just can't do it. He doesn't have time.
And so if we actually roll all the way back to where the rook initially takes the pawn and black sends the pawn forward, correct me if I'm wrong here, Levy, this is our classic concept of danger levels, threatening the queen with the pawn while the rook is under fire, and then, as you mentioned, disconnecting the two from each other as well, forcing white to have to respond to the queen being under threat before looking for a trade? Not exactly.
Not exactly, because it's like the black queen move tactically defends the threat. You're not actually, you're not counterattacking.
Okay.
Like if rook takes pawn, the move pawn to g5, I suppose, is interposing, right? Like you block the defense of the queen. This is like absurd stuff. This queen move.
You're setting up a trap, right? In a sense.
Yeah, basically. Which of course Alireza will see, but no, this just shows like yeah, like you look at the position, you say, oh, the bar is like misleading, but then it's like, okay, make a move. And just like you guys asked me, okay, move the light squared bishop. It's very easy to move the light squared bishop, but when black's next two moves are really easy to find, like, yeah, the position's quite unpleasant. That's why Firouz is now down to 45 minutes. Like, so he's really in the tank.
But to Lavi's earlier point, I think, you know, again, David, you said queen to h4, the move hitting that central pawn is one of the best moves according to the computer. But a player who's just moved that queen one step ahead with the idea of stopping a certain idea at the center of the board, right? The black pawn moving 2 steps forward. It's so counterintuitive to have this move on your radar, on your mind, that on the very next move or just 2 moves down, you replace the queen without it being forced to move. Which is why I think it's hard for a chess player to make such moves. Firouzja taking his time rightly, and while he does that, I really want to pull our attention to another game because it's getting pretty intense on the Magnus Abdusattorov board. I can see the evaluation bar in front of me. It gives Magnus Carlsen a huge advantage. Should we check in with the world number 1?
I think without a doubt, that's where we should go next. So over to Magnus Carlsen.
And it's on the board, by the way.
Wow.
It made sense. It made sense because you did say like it's you're not sure, but he has to do something. He has to make moves that create threats. Yeah, this position looks like Swiss cheese, or let's say German cheese, because black's position looking very dicey. I have to say, like there's holes everywhere to jump in.
Wow, yeah, this position, I mean, there's already so many tempting moves. The white knight coming forward, for example, the white queen and knight, the kind of definition of a powerful attacking combo. Magnus looking up here, the white bishop can develop plenty of choice. And the holes that were mentioned, like Swiss cheese, mostly on the dark squares.
So yeah, we did ultimately, in this game, end up getting the queen all the way over to the A file. Obviously, one of the knights were traded off. Perhaps we can walk back through, show some people how a number of these pieces ended getting off the board. But it does look like a very precarious position for that black king to be at the moment, with still a lot of pieces sitting on the back rank as well, and not having too many options of defense.
Yeah, let's go for a quick action replay just of the last few moves. We left it with black's bishop coming out, forcing the exchange here. We said, okay, Magnus is kind of delaying tactics, no longer relevant. Bishop takes rook, followed by king takes rook, so now back to level material after Magnus's earlier sacrifice. Magnus now brought his knight forward. Nordebek replied by activating his own knight. Given a question mark, maybe not the best move, allowing the white queen to slide over. An idea you mentioned there, James, from earlier, attacking the black bishop, which traded itself off for a knight. The black knight now leapt into the center, attacking the white queen, and after the queen moved, this is how we got here. And yeah, for me, it's mostly the queen placement. Like Magnus has done so much work with his queen already, maneuvered it clearly over to an important side of the board, whereas Nordebek hasn't activated his most important piece.
Yeah, so Nordebek launching a pawn forward, right, trying to create a little bit of tension and maybe a break of his own. But to me, as I play through what could be the pawn break, I feel like Magnus is happy to let that f4 pawn be taken and perhaps open up the file, as long as he can get his rook defended, or it is defended actually by the queen, actually, as I take note of that.
And do any moves come to mind here, Tanya?
But really interesting, because if we optically look at this position, Nordebek's 3 pieces are on the right side of the board, leaving the king alone. And to me, that's sort of like a red alert when you're playing, right? It means that white needs to look for a way to create some threats against the black king, because the pieces are so far away to defend it. And you've got the deadliest combination doing that, right? For Magnus, the queen is already aptly placed. That knight from b3 can jump even closer to the black king on a really nice spot on c5. The only thing that you really want to do in this position is get to that pawn in front of the black king to start threatening checkmate. Combine your queen and knight ideas to get there. There's one defensive piece on the position for Nordebek. It's the centralized knight, which makes me feel, David, why would you not want to try and push that out? Push that e-pawn forward, get that knight out of the way, create some squares for your queen to line up along that file against the black king, and coordinate with the knight, start threatening checkmates.
Yeah, maybe we just show that on the board very quickly as a concept. And James, you mentioned that the white rook is defended here. That is key, so black cannot take this pawn. There are no tricks. This is not a pin. Because the white queen will swoop back. You win a piece here. basically forcing the black knight to retreat. No idea where's best to go. To be honest, if you go to the wrong side of the board, then you might just get punished by Tanya's idea. The white queen sliding in. The white knight now has 2 ways towards the black king, and checkmate looks almost guaranteed at this point. It's terrifying for Nodebek here, I would say, Levy.
For sure. I was thinking between e4, c4, and bishop f3. I mean, I like bishop f3 because you kind of get you actually threaten to capture and ruin the structure a little bit. But e4 also looks really good. Yeah. Everything looks good. I mean,
all the ideas against that one defender. Black's king is feeling very lonely right now on the left side.
Yeah, all of the moves, yeah, based on the same theme of eliminating the black knight, and fight might be over. But in the meantime, it looks like Magnus settled in for a long think here.
Yeah, well, maybe we can we do our best to reason a way out of this for Nodebek? I know that obviously, you know, the onus of the next move is on Magnus, but maybe we try to justify the e5 push at this point, because as we've explored, most of the responses feel pretty good for white, and yet nothing's done without a reason.
True. I think he just needed to break out for space. Nodebek, he was in a bind anyway. The black queen couldn't come out, so if there is a capture in the center, the black queen at least has easy access into the game. But yeah, maybe we need to just find a mode of survival.
Yeah.
How does Nodebek cling on if his knight is kicked away from the middle of the board?
I'm really struggling, and the whole idea revolves around creating a square for the white queen to combine the attack on that b7 pawn. You need a square on the b file, which is currently guarded by that black centralized knight, right? It's really hard to come up with a defense here for Nodebek.
super tough. Yeah, I'm, you know, we're just thinking like meta. Probably just the opening was bad by black. Probably he needed to respect the dangers of the position. And Magnus in his confessional said that, we had the audio on that one, right?
We did, yeah.
We didn't have it on the file.
He felt strong.
Yeah, he said he accidentally set a trap. And I mean, we can go back really quickly just to sort of show the trap. It was on move 3. So, yeah, in this position, Nodebek took the rook and then took the pawn. And he actually should not have done that. He should have kept the bishop there. This is a very common pattern in freestyle chess. You actually don't take the trapped rook more often than not. Like sometimes you think, oh, I should take it now because what if it, I don't know, magically teleports somewhere or there's an in-between tactic. But no, actually Nodebek here was like, okay, I'm going to take the rook and then I'm going to take the pawn and great. But actually that helped Magnus because we saw he gained time. And yeah, Nodebek actually could have lost this game in 3 moves basically, which is the cruelty of this format. Like from there, it was just all Magnus.
Yeah, and to show the trap that you mentioned there, Levy, Magnus did mention one variation in his confessional booth appearance earlier. For example, here, the white queen attacking this pawn. This is where chess gets tricky. This is maybe why Nodebek rushed to capture the rook. If the black pawn now defends this pawn, there could have been a check on the black king. And when this is blocked, the white rook can suddenly save itself. Doesn't look like it can, but you can castle. And swing the white rook over, leaving the black bishop looking silly.
But actually, black is better.
Yeah, this is just optical illusion.
Because I guess, what is the move here for black to be better? Like pawn to g6? Ooh. Just rock solid, open the queen, maybe bishop out, yeah. Like,
yeah. Maybe it's not the fact that you're losing the rook for bishop, more that you've built a powerful pawn center here. So this is the small margins that top games are decided upon. One little idea, one little misevaluation as early as move 3, costing you later.
But alas, not the way this game went this time around, and so instead it's Magnus who finds himself in fairly solid position, but still trying to reason his way through the different calculations following this pawn push here by Nodebek.
I think that's a really instructive point though, right? Freestyle chess or standard chess, when you're attacking an opponent's piece and it has nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, you don't have to rush to win that piece. You can wait. You can think about what more you can improve in the position and only really take it when it does have an escape square.
Yeah, it feels good to pick up material. And then it feels good to hold on to that +3, +4, +5, you know, score line sitting on the side of the board. But to your point, it it lies to you, because if you do have that trap piece on the other side, material is effectively equalized, and that's where we saw Magnus very happy to say, I understand that that material is coming back my way eventually when my opponent puts me in the position of having to take it, as opposed to opting to take it at any turn sooner than that.
One person who has neutralized the white advantage is Hikaru. Maybe we can go take a look at that game. Here, yeah, it's basically Magnus's lunch buffet. I mean, he can choose what to put on his plate and whether to attack for checkmate or not. This is not a position Nodirbek really loves, but this position is completely different. I mean, the way that the Nodirbek position has so many holes and openings for Magnus to drop in his queen and his knight. This one is just a brick wall, and they have only traded one pawn, right? It was that early trade, and Hikaru has reached a level of stability here that will be much harder to exploit. This one will be a much more closed position based on the fact that they both have 7 pawns on the board. And, Javahir is going to probably try to move his knight that's currently in the center to the right side, maybe into the e5 square in the center of the board. That's what I'm expecting, unless there's something, more aggressive.
And his most recent move, Hikaru, receiving the exclamation point, but I'll admit, to my untrained eye, feels a bit like a peculiar move, because we've exposed a diagonal that our king could potentially be attacked on. Well, maybe not immediately. I still see a light squared bishop exactly on the board that could potentially line up for something a little tricky.
Yes, on the flip side, if we back up one move, compare the position, here you can't breathe. Right, as black. Like, here you have nothing. And if you make another move, like, let's just put pawn to h6 on the board, David, like, can you play pawn to d5? Like, can you just play it? And now you're, like, almost winning, right? Like, this is actually the problem. So if white, because if you look, and just for everybody watching at home, you have 4 pieces pointing at your pawn. Rook, knight, bishop, queen, generally.
तो आपने ठान लिया है कि अब से जब भी किसी को पैसे भेजेंगे तो पहले उसका यूपीआई आईडी
leave the nest. So d5 is fantastic. Now that Hikaru played it, yeah, it's a very different kind of flavor of position.
Yeah, but that family reference doesn't really work, because that kid would be off the board for the rest of the family to come into play. So they're kind of sacrificing the kid there.
All right, well, now I'll let you get butchered in the comments, because I was going for
so it's more like sending him off to boarding school, never to be seen again.
He misbehaved. He's going to boot camp.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, boot camp.
But I think that's the key point, right? You have to fight against that idea. Otherwise, your king with the bishop and the queen lined up, targeting that tender b7 spot. You don't want open diagonals and files in the position. And optically, to me as well, James, I was with you, that this creates all these dark square weaknesses for the white knight to jump into, right? It's the c5 square. It's all the squares that are red alert right now. But again, Hikaru has the option also to develop his own knight in front of that rook to try to take control of the squares, and at the right moment, strike in the center with the pawn adjacent to the one that's just moved forward.
And there's always something interesting about how, you in any game, but obviously in chess as well, learning the fundamentals and sticking to the fundamentals. But then there's I imagine, a point in every chess player's journey as they climb the ranks where you hit that point where you have to learn when to break the fundamentals, when to throw them to the wayside, and understanding where the exceptions to the rules are. And that's maybe what separates, great from exceptional, from world class.
Yeah, and of course the players, all 10 of them, we see in that playing hall, world class. They know when to break the rules, when to play these slightly odd-looking moves, and when it is really necessary.
And wouldn't you know it, as we are sitting on Hikaru Nakamura versus Javokir Sindarov, we do have the results from the question we asked earlier in chat about who would come out the victor in this one, and overwhelmingly in favor of Hikaru coming out with the win, so probably happy to see an equalized board position with 60% of the vote, 24% of the vote going to Sindarov, still believing that he's going to pull this one out, and then 16% feeling that this one will end in a draw.
Do a geo-targeted poll in Tashkent and Samarkand, and see
how those results change.
I think the Uzbeks just haven't been exposed to chess, too many chess broadcasts yet. All right, let's get them here.
Does Hikaru lose any poll when it comes to Twitch ever?
No, exactly not. I mean, well, look, of course, he's number 2 in the world. He's probably still top 3, top 5. You got to take him in like rapid blitz bullet. Not at the recent World Championship, but at least overall in performance and results. Javahir's a bit new, and like I said, I'm not sure how many folks in the chat were from Uzbekistan. So let's you know, let's not get too carried away. But at least as far as the opening goes, yeah, this is as good as Hikaru has gotten so far.
All right. Well, in this moment, I'm seeing the door fling open, and we are happy to be joined by two very special guests. We've got the Botez sisters slotting in to join us on the couch. Andrea and Alex,
guys.
thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, a fabulous day of chess for us. How about for you? Were you spending time inside the player hall checking out live games? Or?
We did a little bit earlier. I was watching a bit of the stream. Levy, you got a lot of capitals that started with B.
Oh, well done. Of all the things that I said in the last 2 hours, that one was definitely the most mild. We definitely forgot one, though.
No, the story about the kid and the boogers bleeding.
My gosh, don't start it.
That one.
But you've made content also about playing kids recently. Didn't you go to a tournament? You played like 10 kids in a row or something?
Practically every tournament I play in America is just me losing to a ton of kids, so that's why we don't play in America anymore.
And we're preaching to the choir here. She has like a...
Welcome to India.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling Jules, like, this would be wrong and we probably couldn't do it, but they should just start age gapping tournaments so that we don't have to play kids under 18 because they're always too good and I'm tired of losing to young children.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Charlotte Chess Center, which literally puts on tournaments for only people over 21. You have to be legal drinking age.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's what I was proposing.
But I agree. It's heartbreaking nowadays. You know, when I started playing or competitive chess at its peak, I would always be one of the younger players, and every match I would be paired against somebody older to me. Now I go anywhere, I'm playing someone half my age, and it's just annoying. They're so good. They know all the opening moves. You know, they've memorized theory. I think we need to get freestyle chess into the opens and take them on without the openings.
I feel like I would still lose. Like, I feel like I'm going to talk all this crap, and I'm still going to play some 11-year-old who's not going to know any openings and still beat me, and I'm going to be like, okay.
Probably true. All of us.
I mean, I played like Andy Woodward when he was, you know, 2250, and now he's the youngest grandmaster in America. But I managed to win that game. That was like the last time that But I remember during that game, I was winning 5 different times, and he just kept defending, and I was like, who is this child? Well, now he's, you know, GM. So that's probably what's going to happen to a lot of our opponents.
It does make us feel slightly better when they go on to do well, though. Then you can feel it more at peace with your loss.
Yeah, I beat Gukesh when he was like 10, so it was bullet. He mouse slipped on like move 5. But I'm still going to frame it on my fridge.
Have you farmed that video and put it on YouTube yet?
Yes, I lost every other game we played.
Okay, good. You analyzed that bullet game?
Yeah. That was the highlight of my career. Speaking of Gukesh, we should probably put his game on the screen, right? I feel like it's been a while.
What's been the most exciting thing you guys have seen today? Maybe chess related, maybe not even chess related.
Wait, you guys were there yesterday when the players did their pick, right? Did it surprise you as much when Javakir went for Hikaru?
Oh, the picks?
Yes.
Andrea started clapping.
I was clapping.
And then Aronian looked at her and started clapping.
I love Aronian. He always makes me laugh. He's so funny. Yeah, I thought Fabi was very bold going for Gukesh, so I was pleasantly surprised when they also went for Hikaru.
But Fabi doesn't understand content. If Fabi had chosen Nodirbek, Magnus plays Gukesh. I mean, does he understand we would have quadrupled the view count of the tournament if Magnus and Gukesh played on that? Somebody had to speak to Fabi. Like,
I think Fabi understands it better than anyone. Now that he's a podcaster, you know, he termed Gukesh as, I want to play the world champion. He knows there's this big Indian audience watching.
Yeah, he's thinking for himself.
Fans, yes.
This morning,
basically a celebrity.
He's the biggest superstar.
Biggest celebrity in India now.
He can't step out of his house without getting mobbed now.
That's crazy.
He's been awarded the biggest athlete.
I saw he's getting all these awards.
The highest sporting honor in our country, which is given by the president, the Khel Ratna Award, right before he played the Tata Steel. Since the World Championship, the entire month after that, it's been these commitments and media and awards and not being able to go out. He's a massive superstar.
Wow.
And he's such a great guy.
That's awesome.
Very sweet.
But do you think faces a higher level of fame going outside of their house, Magnus in Norway or Gukesh in India? Probably
That's
Gukesh.
a good question. You know, I'll tell you one thing. India loves Magnus. When he comes for any tournament, whenever, and I think any of you guys come to India, you'll face the same thing. But it's just fans everywhere. So it's tough to say. I think we've seen Magnus in Norway as well. Of course, he's the biggest name. But Gukesh, he's still got a legacy to make, right? He's just getting started. So we'll be able to better answer that question in 5 years from now.
Well, they were talking about doing this big boxing match recently in India. the very famous family, the very wealthy family. I forgot the name. With an A, Johnny something.
Adani.
Yes, Adani.
Yes.
Yeah. And well, why that? Just get Magnus and Gukesh. They don't have to box. Let's just organize one match. We don't have to call it any championship. We don't want any any trouble. We'll just call it some name and get it there. That would I'm sure they could sell out like a stadium, probably like.
It's funny you say that. Yesterday I was talking to Peter and Judith exactly about this, that just waiting for someone to organize a Magnus versus Gukesh, Norway goes wild, India goes wild, the chess world goes wild. But speaking of chess boxing, how's that going for you, Andrea? Are you still boxing a bit?
I'm pretty retired. If there was like a really great opponent for chess box, I would love to do chess boxing again.
Is there an opponent you have in mind?
Hikaru. She wants to box him.
That's not true.
That's a bold pick. Okay, now Andrea, what's going on?
I do not want to box Hikaru. Yeah, I think I would get rolled. But I wish, if I didn't love my sister so much, I would fight my sister, because that would probably be the most hype matchup, which I feel like chess boxing with headgear, after doing a real professional boxing fight, which was so terrifying, I was like, I never want to do that again. I feel like the risk of getting actually injured is not that high in comparison, but I could still definitely not. Well, honestly, after this trip, maybe I could throw 1 or 2 jabs.
Oh, yeah.
Body jabs, not to the face.
Who's got the reach advantage, though?
I do.
That's
I'm taller.
I would love to see her in the ring.
You.
I'm fast. You might be taller than me.
They wouldn't even let us be in the same weight class, though. So
that's not true. No, they absolutely would.
You'd have to get different management and then come to a catch weight.
No. They would. It would be the same about Michelle and I. You would water fast a little bit, and I would put on some weight. It would be easy. How about you guys? Who would be your ultimate opponent?
I'm not made for boxing. I feel I couldn't. I'm too terrified of any contact sport. I love watching it. Big fan of everything you guys did with Ludwig in that match. Really enjoyed watching you, Andrea, in it. But yeah, chess boxing's not for me. But you know, there's this new format.
Ludwig.
Oh.
I feel like him and I are pretty similarly
now that you say
rated.
You guys kind of look similar.
You don't even have to play chess. I mean, you can, I guess. You're pretty similar in chess strength.
Yeah, that could be a good match.
Yeah, but
Ludwig, if you're out there.
I think the last one lost too much money, and then the next one got canceled, so he decided not to even go through all the trouble. But yeah, and I've also said, like, for me, it's way too much risk. I've told this to you when you've offered sparring sessions.
He was too scared to even spar.
Yeah, I was too scared to even spar. I sparred in the gym like 1 or 2 times, and I was getting hit in the head and was like, why am I doing this? Like, this is really like people who need to fight in life for like, you know, self-preservation and everything when they're young. Like, that's the people who are like really admirable, and those are fighters. I'm just doing it for like some fake chess boxing thing that may or may not happen. So I've always said, like, if I do it, it has to be just giant. I don't know. It has to be against somebody like Magnus, Hikaru. I don't know. I can't just take like a random person in the chess world who's my level, because then it's way too much risk for me. Like, I would never do it against Canty, for example, because I would wake up in the hospital. So, but
what about like a mismatch? Someone who's lower rated in chess, but maybe has the advantage in boxing, like Tyler 1?
I mean, he's like 220 pounds, so probably not. Like,
but you're also how many points higher rated than him in chess?
I mean, I just have to like, no, he'd survive long enough in chess. That
he might like that cow opening.
Yeah, I'd have to wait for the muscles to tire out, you know, so.
But you know, there's chess boxing, and then there's also chess and boxing. That's the other format that everyone's looking at, where 2 people team up, a boxer and a chess player, and they're kind of playing simultaneously.
So lame.
Really? Well, that
we need to put the chess players in the ring.
Yeah.
But I think the solution would, which the crowd wouldn't love it, but it's like you just don't allow hits to the head. You just do body jabs only. You see all the chess players having to run around in the ring, because even just like throwing punches and trying to do body jabs, they're gonna get exhausted. It'll be pretty entertaining to watch like chess players. I think like what's so entertaining about chess boxing is the training regimen and seeing everyone get in like the best shape of their life. And like the truth is, on fight day, your punches are so much worse than anything you've ever done in training. I feel like we just have some mutual agreement. You just heads are off limit, and everyone must go anyways.
It's insane, you know. You look at Andrea, and she looks like this really sweet, nice girl, super friendly, and then on the inside, you're just a badass killer, Andrea. What's going on?
I grew up with this one. Honestly, I'd say it's more Alex than me. killer
my
instinct.
pitch is that we should just have all of the top chess players get super jacked because I think that would go really viral.
It'd be pretty good for chess.
I think
That's what
in
I'm
general.
saying. We
It'd be
need
also
like
good for their health.
motivation.
It'd be good for everyone.
Yeah, I think this actually keys into maybe a bit of a larger conversation that I think is interesting, though, just about kind of the evolution of the chess world in the last 5 to 10 years. Obviously, my reintroduction to a game that I was taught at 5 years old was finding people like yourselves on Twitch and kind of rediscovering it. Then to see investment into other formats like chess boxing and now freestyle chess. I wonder for the two of you just kind of what it means and how it feels to have been, major stewards of a fair bit of this evolution in the chess world.
Take it away, sister.
No, you were the first. You led the way for all the ladies here, so.
I remember when I went full-time into chess streaming, I had 200 views and everybody thought it was really stupid. I never expected chess to get to the point where it is now. So honestly, sometimes, like, obviously you can work really hard at something, but the timing was just incredible. Obviously the pandemic was tough, but making everybody stay home, watch things online, Queen's Gambit came out. It was just one of those things where the timing ended up being perfect for when everybody started streaming. And I actually remember Levy was one of the first Twitch streamers to be like, nah, I'm going to YouTube. And he started hustling on that so early. He clearly knew what he was doing.
No, I've always described it like good luck met hard work, I think, for a lot of us. Because I remember way back in the day, I mean, if Hikaru crossed 1,000 live viewers, it was like a big deal. Now anything less than like 10,000 is bad, basically. And
I think this stream is at like 7K.
yeah, no, I'm saying for him, not for the. I'm not trying to start contra. I'm saying for him, like when he streams, but like, yeah, it's crazy how much the whole thing's grown. And we've relied on external stuff for a long time. We relied on Queen's Gambit. We relied on a cheating scandal. We relied on like random short form algorithm explosion. But now hopefully this year, and like with events like this and investment into chess, we can sort of push our own needle like more rather than relying on external stuff.
I gotta ask you to do something. I don't know where it was, but I've been reading that on the internet, some beef between you and Andrea. But I look at you both of you sitting here, and it feels like secretly you guys really good friends. And is it all for content?
The only beef that I have is with the French chess community, and that's not because of me, But I've talked about it openly. I'm Batman, and there's a Joker out there, and he will go nameless. But no, Andrea and I are pretty cordial.
This is not true. He kicked me under the dinner table, and no one heard what he said, but he called me names the entire trip. This is actually the first time he's been on.
This is like when Hans Niemann got on camera and started acting,
I have to say, I love to shit talk Levy, but the first time I deeply sympathized was when I did watch that interview, and it made me
Hans Niemann fan.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going with it.
There's only love here in freestyle chess. In WEISSENHAUS. Everyone gets on with everyone.
Yeah.
Are you guys enjoying freestyle chess?
Well,
Why did you hesitate and look at me? I need to give you permission.
I got a little bit sick as soon as I arrived here, so I've been slowly coming out of my shell, which is such a shame because, like, the part I'm most excited about, so obviously half of our content here is going to be chess content, which is what we're doing today. We're going in the playing hall, but we're also really excited to just get vlog content with like our best friends, with Jules, with Anna, with Levy, my bestest friend.
Oh, we just keep putting a camera in his
my other
face,
best friend. That's true. Levy loves the Botez vlogs. And I haven't been able to do a lot of the exciting vlog activities yet, but I'm finally feeling better today. This morning, we were brainstorming, and Fabi was like thinking of an entertaining chess idea. I think the content team
Did Andrea actually answer if she's enjoying freestyle chess or not? I'm trying to think.
I am enjoying freestyle, but I think there's more to come that I'm going to enjoy even more.
I don't think Nojibek is enjoying freestyle. Not right now. Yeah, this has been all Magnus today.
Well, but no checkmate. Oh, there is the rook lined up with the queen. David, a lot has happened. Should we jump into this one?
Let's do it.
Let's bring it up. Let's get Magnus on the camera as well to see how confident he is feeling right now. We see the evaluation bar on the left side of the board there shooting through the roof, saying that white is completely winning. Over the last few moves, he's built up a pretty nice battery here on the A file. It looks like he's about to infiltrate. The white knight is going to join the party, maybe stepping into where the white queen is sitting right now. Maybe the white pawn will step forward, the bishop might join in. It just looks like an overwhelming attack. this looks huge, maybe decisive in the next few moves.
Yeah, and it all stems from that open A file that was exposed from nearly the second move of the game.
Yeah, this is so harmonious from Magnus. It's like he's been conducting like an orchestra, just so impressive. Kind of he brought his king up, his rook, which was activated from much, much earlier, has slid across, his queen, which was posted up so long ago. I'm not sure where the knockout blow is. I'm not sure why Magnus's heart rate is so low, considering the fact that he must be getting excited about the victory.
Nodrbek is just like vibing.
Yeah,
Nodrbek's been vibing the whole game. He's just, yeah, I'm getting cooked. Whatever. Like, sometimes it happens. I mean, you can't, like, get too flustered, even if your position's bad. I think he's at the lowest heart rate pretty consistently.
Whoa, and he does decide to get the knight.
Yeah.
More firepower into the attack. You know, and this is the other
Knight
thing.
C6, BC, Queen A8, Rook A7, right?
Oh, yeah, let's show that. Let's make a non-move here. Magnus setting up a big trap in the position.
Yeah, if black does nothing, just pushes a pawn, then knight takes C6's check. Forcing moves, always the first ones to calculate, and another check followed by another check, and multiple ways to win this one, but you can close it out with a beautiful pawn checkmate right at the very end. So yeah, he doesn't want to go for a king walk, Nodrbek, but how does he survive? How does he protect the square, escape? This looks over. This just looks hopeless.
Yeah, Nodrbek knows that.
To my eye, the only defensive resource for that pawn is the rook sliding over, but that doesn't really solve many of our long-term issues.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can check it out, see what happens if black does play that move, James. Just defends the pawn.
Might be the only one. Can you actually give a check with the queen on A7 and then bring the rook into the attack as well? Try and threaten ideas along the 6th rank once you've pinned that pawn to the king?
Computer says yes, Tanya. The eval bar still up in white's favor. This pawn is now threatened, the rook untouchable, there's a pin. And black can only postpone the inevitable by starting to run away, but white starts gobbling up pawns, and like a pack of dominoes, it all starts to collapse.
Well, look at Magnus. He's checking out the other games. He knows he's winning, or about to win in the next 5 moves.
Yeah, exactly. Looks to be dire straits here for Nodrbek. Going to spend that remaining time that he has, no reason not to, right? To see if you can find a way to reason yourself out of this position, but probably well aware that it is lost. And Magnus, ever so confident, coming away with that, or near coming away with victory. White pieces on day 1 just means that he's set up beautifully for tomorrow in the second round, as these two players will swap to sides of the board and go at it once more.
Big trouble for Nodrbek here. Andrea, Alexandra, is there a player that you guys are rooting for in this one? Do you have a favorite player here?
They're both diehard Nodrbek fans.
Well, either in this matchup or across all 10 players.
It's hard to pick. I have a lot of favorites.
Nodrbek was on their parlay, so, you know, we have...
I've been slowly making a list of everyone who answered some of my more silly interview questions. So there was one who answered, actually, I probably shouldn't even share this one on the stream. How many times do you go number 2 in a day? So there was only one player who answered. I won't say who. He was my favorite. But then Aronian was also really funny, and he was also entertaining my questions. So it's a hard tie. But also, I'm a really big Hikaru fan, so I feel like ultimately I have to be rooting for Hikaru.
Aronian's coming to poker night. He's the only one confirmed so far, so we gotta cheer for him here.
He's the best. We're trying to convince him to do commentary with me tomorrow. Hopefully he says
Andrea
yes.
hasn't asked him yet, but
he will say yes. We know. Yeah.
Isn't he playing tomorrow?
He's playing.
He's got
After
one.
his
on
game.
Tuesday.
Oh, sorry, Tuesday. It's Sunday. Yeah.
Yes,
Tuesday.
okay. There
That's
we
what
go.
I meant.
No, maybe he is playing. I don't know. Maybe he will do commentary. Just he'll like go in and out. Go make a move.
If there was any pro player most willing to do that, I feel like it would be Levon. Yeah, go. Oh, I need to go make a move. Excuse me, and now I'm back to comment on my own game.
He's so easygoing. How about you guys? Who are you rooting for?
Well, as commentators, I think we're, you know, you gotta stay, you gotta stay unbiased. You want the event to win, you want Freestyle to win, but I think Javakir's story here has just been incredible, right? Coming into this tournament, we've spoken so much about that, and I think if there's one player who's impressed me the most so far, it's Sindarov.
I would agree with that in terms of who has impressed me the most so far in the tournament, but definitely yes. As broadcasters, the correct answer is we're rooting for the viewers. The best chess
community stream
that will deliver exactly the most entertaining games for the viewers, and I think Freestyle Chess is already kind of predisposed to doing so. these players have delivered in a number of ways as well. With that, I don't want to take too much of y'all's time. I know that you guys are enjoying the WEISSENHAUS Resort and probably have some other commitments to get to, so I'll thank the both of you, Alexandra and Andrea, for joining us here today, and I'll let you guys go enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you guys for having us. I'll be tuning in as a viewer. I'll hopefully more capital questions. That was really fun.
Yeah, for
we'll
sure.
cover all the countries in the world by the end of the broadcast, or Levy will, I should say. Ethiopia.
We'll get back with that one.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much.
Goodbye,
it's our
chat.
pleasure. So keeping our attention here on the Magnus Carlsen and Nördebäck game, as Nördebäck still looks for some kind of resource that might be able to pull him back into contention, but not looking so great. So perhaps we zoom on out and take stock of all of the boards. Look for another one that perhaps catches our interest, because as it was a number of the players with the white pieces advantage through the middle of the day, it seems like a few more players in the black position have wrestled some small advantage, or at least gotten themselves back to an even game state.
Yeah, earlier we checked in with Alireza Firouzja, Vincent Keimer. We felt that it was the local hero, the German Vincent Keimer, who was starting to turn things his direction. That game.
जब आकाश मेहता का फैशन इकोनॉमी से बिजनेस क्लास अपग्रेड हुआ, इनका ट्रिप टेक ऑफ से पहले ही क्रैश हो गया।
आज अचानक रणबीर कपूर बन गया।
रणबीर क्या? जो चाहे वो बन सकता।
FIR किसके नाम का लिखूं?
मिंत्रा का नाम लिखो ना। वो हजारों सेलेब स्टाइल्स 999 में दे रहे हैं।
हजारों सेलेब लुक्स, वो भी 999 में। मिंत्रा के साथ फैशन विद कॉशन।
Gukesh against Fabiano looking relatively balanced, but yeah, all to play for in that one. And Aronian, we should mention, in 9th to 10th, he has an advantage, but out of the running for tournament victory.
Maybe we jump back into that Sindarov-Nakamura game, just because for me, I'm looking over on the right-hand side of the board. While the Carlsen game looks to be decided by the left-hand side, it seems like with the pawn positions here in Sindarov versus Nakamura, and a question mark being given to that most recent move by Sindarov, just a completely different attention in terms of the important areas of the board and the squares from these players as compared to Magnus.
You know, you're looking at the pawns on the right side. I just want to make a strategical concept in this position on the left side of the board. Hikaru's got this connect 3, as you like to call it, David, going in the center of the board, and it's all on the light squares, and it appears that it's kind of diluting that light squared bishop that Yavakir has. But it's also taking away the advantage of the other bishop, the dark squared bishop, by forcing white's pawn not to move ahead and activating it. In a sense, Sindarov's got these two bishops, but they're kind of staring at these pawn walls, right? With no activity. And you need an open position, you need open diagonals to really show the power of the bishops. And I think Sindarov's not finding it very easy to find those squares and those diagonals for his pieces.
Yeah, I'm normally so in love with the bishop pair that I was even tempted to get a tattoo of two bishops, but these are probably the worst bishop pair I've seen in a while. Here, Tanya, you're right. They're just staring at brick walls.
Do you have a tattoo, David?
No comment. Maybe after this one.
Anyone, yeah?
We'll catch him in the sauna later, and I'll report back.
I wanted a tattoo of my dog's paw. Like, I wanted to get my dog's paw, and I wanted it here. And I'm really scared of needles, so it would be a big thing for me. But maybe I'll get one, you know, next year.
Close your eyes, throw some music in some headphones, nice and loud, and then eventually the pain just kind of melts away after a little bit.
All right, I'll try that.
Yeah,
but I might faint, so I think I'll still.
Well, there you go. That's another way to deal with it.
Yeah, they won't
just have them shake you away
they won't
when it's all
continue
done.
the tattoo though if I'm unconscious. Yeah, this is great from Hikaru. He's just going to break apart these pawns, but that's not going to change the situation with the white bishops, because they're still going to be staring at a brick wall. Like they're looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah, really nice move from Hikaru. And, yeah, it just looks like tactics are working his favor as well. There's some nasty checks against the white king if you're not too careful.
Right, it feels like both of these bishops want to be one square diagonally up and to the right from where they are each, right? Like those would be much better diagonals in the end, it feels like, in a number of ways. So that H-pawn maybe coming forward, making some space, either offering that trade against the bishop or at least playing along that sight line. And then maybe as some of these pawns are traded off, perhaps this bishop can find a way, yes, one square farther forward. And now it actually has a bit of a threat on the king in the long term. But it's just a total traffic jam right now.
I hear you guys, and I see that blue mark appear. Great move by Hikaru, but I'm still trying to understand. To me, it just looks like you're giving up a pawn. White can first grab the pawn that's just moved forward, get rid of that central pawn, and then the bishop and the pawn on that right side are also targeting the h5 pawn. Isn't that just an extra pawn? What has Hikaru set up here?
Yeah, let's try to work it out. So first, I guess you need to kind of restore the material balance. You need to grab a pawn. Let's say that black takes with the knight, for example, and
pawn to g4.
Yeah, I think it is this move. This is the tactic.
And then there's a and the bishop is protected on the square it's currently standing, but not if it takes the pawn. And yeah, you lose a bishop.
Whoops.
With the king. Okay.
Stunning.
And oops. If the bishop has to retreat, black has very many tempting moves here. The knight can jump forward. You can, at the very minimum, restore the material balance. You grab a pawn back, retaining all of the advantage. I just wanted to highlight the white queen in the corner, which never really got going, and that's the one thing we've learned from freestyle chess. Queens need some breathing space.
Now, what if we taken a different order? We're going to go for the h-pawn first. Right, offering, if you can't take that back with the queen because it's still protected by the bishop. So what would be the response here from Hikaru?
Yeah, and now I guess he would connect his pawns. And again, the bishops aren't so great, but the pawn structure now definitely favorable for black. It's two connected pawns. They're often just much more flexible, much stronger long-term than two doubled pawns, especially isolated pawns like this.
Okay, so while even positionally not a good situation for white, because I would see that, okay, I have a passed pawn. One of the things we hunt for more than anything, right, as winning chances would be that h-pawn, but just unsupported enough to be relevant.
Unsupported, yeah. Passed pawns are normally best when they're protected or when the board is already relatively clear, so they have a clear run-through. But this pawn's not going to survive too much longer. The black queen will just hunt it down, or, I mean, it's easily going to be blockaded anyway as it advances. I'm not saying this is lost for white. This might be one of his best tries, I agree, but it looks like either way at the moment, it's not a pleasant choice for Sindarov.
Good finds here for Hikaru. I know that a number of players were definitely looking forward to and excited for that switch into the classical time controls, right? Giving themselves just that a bit more time to really work through some of the calculations where maybe they feel they will get advantages over their opponents that they had to play without or live without in the rapid setting. Nakamura taking a quick stroll around the room, took a quick look at Carlsen's table, probably recognizing as well that Carlsen is on the edge of victory.
Yeah, the two players who are enjoying their position, they're just sort of sitting there chilling, well, not sitting, standing there chilling, looking at the other boards. And it's been really interesting, their stories, right? This whole tournament. They start day one very shaky. 3 losses for Magnus, Hikaru also down on the leaderboard, and then they come out and they're completely back on day 2, scoring 3.5 out of 4. They come into the classical, well, dominating their game 1. Hikaru with the black pieces, Magnus crashing through with Norderbeck. What switched Levy after day 1? What happened there?
I think it just takes a little longer in chess, but it's kind of like the first set of a 5-set tennis match. It's very often that like Djokovic just loses 6-2 and you're just thinking like, okay, wow, that was really weird. I mean, he just got clobbered, and he just wins like 3 in a row. Sometimes he loses 2 sets, and then he wins 3 in a row. So I guess in chess, it just takes longer. Like a set can be an hour. Okay, in chess, you have to lose for an entire day and be like, washed up, career's over, blah, blah, blah. And then he, just shows up, plays a beautiful classical game. I mean, I will say Magnus is probably about 10 moves away from actually winning the game. This one is not, it's not to that level.
Yeah. Jabuki is still in it. He can still fight back. Early days here. The clock maybe not in his favor, not his friend right now, but I wonder whether we go back to the Magnus Carlsen game just to see if it ends, how it ends.
Yeah, there has finally been a decision made over in that game by Norderbeck, so let's hop over there because he thinks he's found his best resource for staying alive, and I say his best, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to ultimately keep him alive in this one, dropping the knight back to try and lock out that A file so the queen can't infiltrate the way that we were talking about before to that A7 square.
This just feels like... don't even know how to describe it without being too harsh here, but it feels like you've got an enemy army running at you. White here with the queen, the rook, the knight all attacking, and you've put your weakest soldier kind of without any weapons just on a really flimsy square like this. The black knight is not going to hold the tide much longer. It can just get kicked away.
So what's stopping me, even though from here still going for knight takes pawn on d6? Because if you recapture, I now take the hanging knight on a6, no?
I love it, James. I think that
d6 would be illegal. That would cause some issues, but that would be a great move.
Knight takes c6.
Yes,
C6.
but c6.
Thank you. Sorry.
C6
yes.
is a fantastic move.
And that's why we have David over here being the one to draw the arrows, understanding what I meant.
know what you meant.
Yes, but knight c6 is, yeah, I mean, it's completely winning.
Yeah, it's completely winning. It's just about how Magnus wants to win this and how much resistance he wants to allow. Just to put this on the board, knight takes c6 is a deflection tactic. The black pawn is overstretched here, overworked. If it does take the knight, I think the one downside here is it does allow the black queen to swing across, but Magnus still extra pawn, big attack. He tries to be even more ambitious. This would have allowed black to defend maybe just a few more moves. He instead plays the move pawn to b5, just totally eliminating this defender. And yeah, Tanya, this just looks like it. Well, where does Nodebek find the resistance? Is it over?
Well, Magnus was taking a think, right, before pushing this pawn, because to all of us, knight takes pawn felt like the tactics you really want on the board. He's calculated something through in this line. And to me, it's really not that obvious. It looks like a very powerful move. Nodebek will take it, as he does. Another thing is, I want to grab that pawn back with my own pawn kicking the knight away, but it opens up a line towards the white king, which the queen can then once again slide over and force a trade. And that cannot be Magnus's idea. David, you're highlighting the move, the rook sliding over, but even the queen coming over to that square, forcing a trade. So what does Magnus want? Because if it's not a recapture with that pawn, how is he following this last move through?
Can we recapture with our queen, setting up a pin on the pawn towards the king, and then the knight jumps into that c6 square that we were looking at?
Yeah, good point. Just to show Tanya's idea quickly, I must admit I missed this one, queen to c7 check, getting the queens off the board, and this one, at least black survives a bit longer.
Maybe queen b6 is the idea now.
Whoa, instead of taking on b5.
Yeah, just to put James's move on the board as well, queen takes pawn.
Yeah, they're both
very healthy.
Yeah.
Attacking the knight now, threatening to jump in with a knight check, the b pawn pinned. But Levy, I think your move probably just winning as well, queen to b6. Maybe.
And he goes for that. He goes for Levy's idea, and I think I spotted the difference, that after queen takes pawn, it might again give Nodebek's queen the possibility to dash over to defense, offering a trade now from the d7 square, David. So queen b6 just perhaps doesn't allow that, because if you try to replicate that idea, bringing the queen closer to the black king, white can jump in with a rook, capture that knight, and defend the queen.
Let's show it. You do not need to trade queens until you win a knight first, and rook takes knight, and the black b pawn pinned, and white will emerge with that extra piece, even if it is an endgame, and Nodebek will not continue that on much longer. He would resign if he loses a piece, and
well, this is the benefit of Magnus's position, right? Almost no bad moves for him to make, and for Nodebek, almost only bad moves at this point, as he still looks for any resource available to him to weasel his way out of it.
They're good moves. They're just at the wrong moment. There's nothing you can do. Like, you know, if the position is bad or you're
New Tata Tiago. New tech, new style, new colors. It's a chill car.
Moment to really bounce back into the game. I'd love to check the accuracy on this one from Magnus Carlsen, David.
Ooh.
Do we have it?
Yeah, it's high.
It's okay. Let's take a guess before David reveals it. What do you think it is?
I saw it.
I'm staring at it. I've also looked at it throughout the game.
I know. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
I ruined your game because I saw it, but it is an astronomical accuracy.
99. I mean,
that's massive.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Just how good the guy is.
Especially in freestyle chess. We've seen the first 10 moves in the round robin stage. The first 10 moves, often the players were down at like 75, 80% accuracy, but give Magnus a bit of time on the clock, he finds all the best moves. I just want to say as well, Nodebek didn't use his time wisely. He had a lost position. He had nearly an hour on the clock, and he was dead lost already. So clearly adjusting to this time format was a struggle for him.
Well, I mean, best player in the world, right? Is going to be the kind of person who, when you give him just the slightest advantage, is generally going to be able to navigate to a finish while eliminating as many mistakes to hand it back as possible.
I'm actually going to let you guys continue without me because I think I'm going to be interviewing players one by one in one of the other booths as they finish, and I'm sensing Nordicbet will not think for 41 minutes before. I mean, I sense this one will be over probably in a few moves. So maybe I'll drop back after the game is done. But
I think that's more than fair, my friend. Thank you so much for lending your expertise.
Still haven't
and
told
your
me
ideas.
Capital of Ethiopia, by the way.
Well, you know,
Addis, no? Addis.
Addis
You're British. You're well educated, and
sorry,
we're American.
Yeah. Admittedly, my African geography is probably my worst.
In 7th grade, we had to memorize where every country was and then fill it in.
Wow.
Did you guys ever have to do quizzes like that?
No, see, it was so insular. It was, can you name all 50 states, like, do all 50 states, but we never, no one ever
I'm not even sure I can.
decided to look outside
I never
the country.
went to school. I was playing.
Yeah, you were like you both were child prodigies and so on. And
Yes, but
right,
but for you, I could say any position on a board, and you'd be able to visualize it. And for me, I can't do that either.
The castle in the position. Here is Magnus's queen on b6. But you know, to your point, world #1 for a reason, right? That insane accuracy of 98.7. But it's also the precision that he's shown over the last few moves, just converting this to a win. Instead of grabbing that pawn, instead of going and giving Nordicbet chances perhaps to offer a queen trade, he's sort of done this clinically, flawlessly. Just shows what a beast he is. The other thing I will tell you about Magnus, and perhaps David, you know this better than anyone else here, he loves to play against these youngsters and beat them. There's this added sort of motivation in him when he's playing this new lot, whether it's Gukesh, whether it's Nordicbet. He especially enjoys these battles.
Yeah, and I mean, just that look of surprise yesterday when he found out he wasn't about to play Hikaru Nakamura.